I want you to picture this. It's Tuesday night, you're exhausted, you flop down on the couch, and you turn on the TV.
A ritual.
Exactly.
Right.
And you're watching a woman throw a glass of Chardonnay at her quote-unquote best friend because of some rumor about a text message.
We've all been there.
And it's total trash, right? It's high drama,
Yeah.
and we all file it away under guilty pleasure. Just some, I don't know, mindless fluff to turn our brains off.
Yeah, that's the usual defense, isn't it? It's just junk food for the brain. But, when you actually look at the stack of research we've pulled for this deep dive,
It's a big stack.
it is. We're talking media studies from the Garland Journal. We've got deep psychological profiles from Find a Psychologist. And that that junk food excuse, it really, really doesn't hold water anymore.
No, it really doesn't. And that's what we were digging into today. We're calling this the reality trap.
A good name for it.
Because the argument that keeps popping up in all these sources is that the line between reality TV and, actual reality, it's not just blurring, it's like completely gone.
It's evaporated.
Yeah. And we're not just watching this stuff anymore. We're mimicking it. We're building our entire economy around its principles.
Right.
And this is the scary part, according to this essay by Alan Elrod. We might actually be breaking our democracy with it.
It sounds like hyperbole. I mean, it sounds crazy to say the Real Housewives is breaking democracy.
It does.
But when you actually trace the mechanism, how we consume people's lives, how we edit their narratives, how we monetize their outrage, the connection is, well, it's a straight line. It's unnervingly direct.
So let's start with a how, because I think most of us, we're savvy enough to know reality TV is fake. We know it's scripted, at least to a degree.
Sure, we're not naive.
But I was reading through that Garland Journal piece on production techniques, and the level of manipulation is it's so much more sophisticated than just a producer telling someone what to say. They talk about something called the villain edit.
Right. And the villain edit, it's not just about finding someone who's naturally a bit abrasive and pointing a camera at them.
Right.
It's a construction. It is a full-on manufacturing job that happens in post-production long after the cast has gone home.
The term that really it jumped off the page for me was frankenbiting.
Sounds like something from a horror movie.
It really does.
Yeah.
But the description is almost clinical. It's not just taking a quote out of context. It's literally, they're stitching together single words, sometimes just syllables, from different sentences, from different days.
Different weeks, even.
To create a sentence that the person never, ever said. Not even close.
And they do the exact same thing with the video. They'll take what's called a reaction shot. Let's say it's you're rolling your eyes because the set lights are too bright, or you've been filming for 14 hours and you're just exhausted. Okay.
They'll take that shot of your eye roll and they will splice it in right after another contestant has this tearful confession about a personal tragedy.
Oh, wow.
And suddenly you're not tired anymore. You're a sociopath. You're a monster who doesn't care about anyone's pain.
And it works. That's the thing. The sources gave some really, really specific examples from just the last year or so that just nail this perfectly. Did you see the breakdown of Huda from Love Island USA? This was just last summer, June 2025.
That was a textbook case, an absolute masterclass in narrative manipulation. So you have Huda, and you have her male counterpart on the show, Jeremiah.
Right.
And they're both involved in the same messy, dramatic situation. They're both yelling, both contributing to the chaos. But the final edit that went to air,
The edit just destroyed her. I mean, it was surgical. They focused exclusively on her moments of aggression. There was a pillow toss that got replayed 3 times. The shouting.
meanwhile, Jeremiah's role in escalating things. He was practically a ghost in the final cut of those arguments. He's completely protected. The goal of the story that week was Huda is the problem, and so reality was literally bent and cut and stitched to fit that shape.
And here's the kicker. The audience completely bought it. And that's the key to all of this. Even though we know intellectually, oh, this is an edited show, our brains are wired to react to the visual evidence in front of us. We see her yelling. We don't see him instigating. Therefore, the conclusion is simple. She's the villain.
It's the same thing with Katie Janela on Real Housewives of Orange County back in May. She joins the show, and within 2 episodes, boom, instant antagonist.
I needed a conflict driver for the season, and she was it.
Or Hunter from The Bachelor. I remember seeing the tweets, the online commentary. Everyone was saying he was aggressive, too intense.
Fascinating.
And it turns out the producers were using a priming technique. It's almost subliminal. They were repeatedly cutting to other contestants saying the word aggressive, not even necessarily about him, but they'd cut it in whenever he was on screen. So they're building this association in your head.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy that was manufactured in an editing bay in Burbank.
Oh.
But this brings us to the big question, right? This is what all the expert commentary and the sources keep circling back to.
If we know about it.
Exactly. If we know about Frankenbiting, if we've heard of the villain edit, why does it still work on us? Why do we still get online and tweet about how much we hate Huda or how creepy Hunter is?
And that right there, that is the psychological trap. It doesn't matter what we know intellectually. Emotionally, we're just hardwired to believe what we see and hear. And that leads us directly to this concept of parasocial relationships. Now, I feel like this term gets thrown around a lot lately, especially on like TikTok. And usually it's used incorrectly.
It's become a bit of a buzzword.
It has. But looking at the actual definition from the Find a Psychologist source and the Chung and Cho study, it's actually very, very specific.
It is. A true parasocial interaction, or PSI, is it's defined as a one-sided relationship. One party, the viewer, extends enormous amounts of emotional energy, time, intellectual capital.
Yeah, thinking about them you're talking about.
Right. While the other party, the celebrity, the reality star, is completely 100% unaware that the first person even exists.
It's the I know them, but they absolutely do not know me dynamic.
Precisely. And for a long time, historically, this wasn't really seen as a huge deal. It started with, like, newscasters. Walter Cronkite is the classic example. You saw him in your living room every single night. You came to trust him.
He felt like part of the family.
Then it moved to soap opera stars, characters people followed for years and years. But there's a massive fundamental shift that happens with the internet.
Right. The sources make a big distinction between observation and interaction. Walter Cronkite was never reading my letters to the editor.
That's the whole ballgame. That's the game changer. Social media created the illusion of a two-way street, the illusion of reciprocity.
How so?
Well, you comment on an influencer's Instagram post, maybe they like your comment, or they reply with a single heart emoji. Your brain doesn't care that it's a low-effort interaction. It just registers the response and releases a little hit of dopamine.
You feel seen.
You feel seen. You don't just feel like a fan in a crowd anymore. You feel like a friend, an acquaintance at least.
The Find a Psychologist source really digs into why we crave this, and honestly, it's a little heartbreaking. It really boils down to safety.
Risk management.
Totally. Real-world relationships are dangerous. You can get rejected, you can get your heart broken, you could say the wrong thing and be awkward. But a parasocial relationship with a star from The Bachelorette?
Completely safe.
100% safe. They can't break up with you, they can't ghost you, because, again, they don't know you exist.
It is companionship without any of the associated risk. And for decades, psychology treated this as, frankly, pathological. The assumption was, oh, if you're obsessed with a TV star, you must be a lonely, isolated person with no real friends.
Bit of a stereotype?
A huge stereotype. But that UNLV thesis we looked at, the research by Lakin, it just flips that entire idea on its head.
Completely. The modern data, the more recent studies, they suggest that for most people, these parasocial bonds don't replace their real-life social networks.
No, they expand them. It's an add-on, not a substitute. You have your work friends, your family, your real-life friends, and then you have your TV friends. It's another community to belong to.
It's a low-stakes way to process social cues and emotions, isn't it?
That's a great way to put it. It's like a social simulator.
I really want to drill down into the demographics from that UNLV thesis because the data was just, it was fascinating to me. I kind of assumed this was a universal thing everyone did equally, but there are some really distinct splits.
There are.
First off, gender. The study found that women consistently score significantly higher on parasocial interaction scales than men do.
Which, of course, brings up that classic nature versus nurture debate, right? Is it because women are socialized from a young age to be more empathetic, more relationally focused?
Or is it something else?
Or is it simply that it's more socially acceptable for a woman to admit, you know, I really care about what happens to this person on this show, whereas a man might feel the exact same attachment to, say, a quarterback?
But he'd never call it a relationship.
Never. He'd call it being a fan. It's the same psychological mechanism, just with different branding.
That's a really good point. Sports fandom is basically just parasocial interaction with a team jersey on.
For sure.
But the racial and ethnic breakdown in that study was what really, really surprised me. The finding wasn't about the intensity of the bond. The research showed that people from all backgrounds formed these attachments equally strongly. It was about who we choose to form them with.
Yes, the mirror effect. The studies showed that we tend to gravitate toward public figures who we feel reflect our own identity or experiences.
And the standout statistic, the one that made me read it twice, was about Beyoncé.
I know the one you're talking about.
In the study's sample group, Beyoncé was selected as a primary parasocial figure exclusively by respondents who identified as Black, Hispanic, or Asian. Not a single white respondent in their sample selected her.
Zero.
Zero. I mean, that feels almost statistically impossible given she's one of the most famous people on the planet.
In that specific sample, yes, it was zero. And at the same time, a figure like Britney Spears had a very mixed cross-demographic following.
So what does that tell us?
It suggests that while the psychological need to connect is universal, the target of that connection, who we choose to connect with, is deeply, deeply tied to our sense of cultural identity and lived experience. We want to be friends with people who we believe would actually get us.
And another interesting detail from that study, it found that we tend to form the strongest bonds with actors or reality stars, even more so than with musicians.
Which seems counterintuitive, right? You think of music fandom as being so intense.
Very intense. But the reasoning makes perfect sense. It's the visual storytelling. With a reality star, we see them crying in a confessional. We see them in their pajamas making breakfast. We see them fighting with their mom on the phone.
That perceived visual vulnerability, that access, it just accelerates the feeling of intimacy in a way that just listening to a 3-minute song on the radio doesn't.
Which is exactly what the producers are banking on.
Yeah.
This whole system is designed to exploit that. And that brings us to the next part, the actual mechanism of intimacy.
Yeah.
How do they actually hack our brains to make us think we're their friends?
Right. And the Chung and Cho study on Korean wave fans, it identifies the secret sauce. And the secret sauce is one simple concept: self-disclosure.
Okay, what is that?
Self-disclosure is simply the act of revealing personal, private information. In a normal friendship, this happens slowly, reciprocally. You tell me a small secret, I tell you a small secret, and over time, that builds a foundation of trust.
But on reality TV and social media, it's not a slow drip. It's a fire hose.
It's what researchers call hyper-personal communication. It's intimacy on steroids. When a reality star posts a no-makeup selfie with a caption about their insecurities, or they tweet about having a bad mental health day,
It feels raw. It feels real.
or, and this is my favorite part of the research, when they make spelling errors in their tweets.
Wait, hold on. The spelling errors are strategic. You're telling me they're misspelling things on purpose.
Well, whether they're strategic or just accidental, the effect is exactly the same. Think about it. A press release from a PR firm is polished. It has perfect grammar, perfect spelling. It feels corporate and distant.
Right.
But a tweet that says, "I'm so sad today," with the number 2 instead of the word today, what does that feel like?
It feels like a real person. Like
Yeah.
someone just thumbing it out on their phone while they're sitting in their car, not overthinking it.
Exactly. It signals authenticity. The little imperfections are what make it feel human. They're just like me. They can't spell either when they're upset.
Wow.
And the Chung and Cho findings show a direct, linear correlation. The more realistic a viewer perceives the content to be, meaning the more unpolished, the more raw, the more backstage it feels, the stronger and faster that parasocial bond forms.
So it's a two-pronged attack. The Frankenbiting in the edit bay creates the high-stakes drama to get our attention in the first place.
And then the self-disclosure on their personal social media builds the friendship to keep us invested and keep us coming back.
That is a brilliant and, frankly, a very insidious trap.
It is, because once you feel that friendship, once you believe you have that bond, you are incredibly vulnerable to the next phase of the machine.
To the money.
The economy of influence.
So let's talk about this idea of the trust transfer. This is the part of the deep dive that really explains why every single contestant from the Bachelor franchise suddenly becomes an expert on teeth whitening strips or meal prep kits. It's not just because they have a lot of followers. It's because we've been conditioned to trust them.
The chain of logic laid out in that Chung and Cho source is, well, it's frighteningly simple and effective. It goes like this. A strong parasocial relationship leads to perceived credibility.
Meaning what, exactly?
Because I feel like I know you and I like you, I naturally assume you are an honest and knowledgeable person. That's the first step. Then your perceived credibility transfers over to brand credibility.
So if you say, this detox tea works.
Then I believe the tea works, because I believe you. And that, of course, leads directly to the final step, purchase intention. It's not about the product anymore. It's about the person selling it.
It's basically monetizing friendship on a mass scale. If my actual best friend from college tells me to buy a certain pair of running shoes because they're great, I'm probably going to buy them.
Of course, you trust the source.
Reality TV just creates a million of these pseudo-best friends and then sells their influence to the highest corporate bidder.
But this is where the data starts to get really messy, because these friends are human, they're volatile, they get into huge scandals, they get canceled.
Right.
And we've got some absolutely fascinating numbers here from YouGov and Infogee about what happens when that parasocial bond suddenly and violently snaps.
We have to talk about the slap, the Will Smith incident.
Mm.
The data from Infogee on this is just staggering.
It's a perfect case study in what psychologists call a flashbulb memory, a moment so shocking it's seared into the collective consciousness. The slap at the 2022 Oscars generated 6.4 million online mentions in a very short period.
Which is a huge number, but it needs context.
Okay, here's the context. That single event one slap accounted for 5.34% of all conversation about the Academy Awards over a 16-year period.
Wait, say that again?
Over 16 years of movies, red carpets, acceptance speeches, best picture winners and losers, all of that. And one slap took up more than 5% of the entire conversational volume.
It's like a black hole. It just sucked in all the oxygen in the room for more than a decade.
It really did. And the sentiment analysis shows just how personally the audience took this. It wasn't just an event they observed. Negative sentiment toward the Oscars as an institution jumped from around 8% to 42% overnight.
Okay, that makes sense.
But the negative sentiment directed at Will Smith himself, it spiked 119%.
It wasn't just, oh, he did a bad thing. The reaction was so much deeper. It was a sense of betrayal.
That's the parasocial element right there. We thought we knew Will Smith. For 30 years, he was the Fresh Prince, the charming, funny, safe guy. The violence shattered the illusion of that relationship we thought we had with him.
And it had a long tail. The source says even a year later, people were still talking more about the slap than about the actual movies that were nominated for Best Picture.
It overshadowed everything.
But then, you look at someone like Kanye West or Ye. The YouGov data on his fallout with Adidas after his anti-Semitic comments. It paints a much more complicated, much murkier picture of what cancellation actually means.
It does, because we tend to think of cancellation as this universal, global punishment. You do something terrible, you get dropped, everyone hates you, end of story.
And in some places, that's what happened. In the US and the UK, that was mostly true. About a quarter of consumers said they would actively stop buying from any brand associated with him.
A significant number.
But then you look at the global map and the story changes completely.
The data from the UAE and India is it's baffling if you're looking at it through a purely Western lens. In those markets, consumers were twice as likely to say they would actually buy more from a controversial figure.
Buy more. How do you even explain that? Is it just that the specific scandal didn't resonate, or is there something else going on?
It could be a number of things. It could be that in those markets, scandal just reads as massive publicity, and all publicity is good publicity. Or it could be a kind of anti-establishment sentiment, a desire to support the bad boy who speaks his mind no matter what he says.
It shows that moral outrage isn't a global currency.
Not at all. It fluctuates wildly based on culture, politics, and local context.
There's also a huge age divide in that data, too. Gen Z, the 18 to 24-year-olds, they were the most polarized group by far.
They're the all-or-nothing generation when it comes to this stuff. They were the group most likely to say they would boycott a brand, but they're also the group most likely to boycott.
To boycott, meaning to buy more to show support.
Exactly. To aggressively support the controversial figure as a form of rebellion. They pick a side and they go all in.
So they're engaged. They're in the fight.
They're in the fight. Whereas the 55-plus demographic, they were the most indifferent. They didn't really boycott. They didn't boycott. They just sort of tuned out, changed the channel.
Which suggests that the parasocial bond, that feeling of friendship, is strongest and also most volatile with younger audiences who grew up with it.
It's the water they swim in.
Okay, so let's recap. We've established that the reality is fake, the friendship is a psychological hack, and the money is very, very real. But now we have to go to the darkest part of this whole outline. The Source American Freak Show by Alan Elrod. This is where we stop talking about selling sneakers and meal kits and we start talking about selling souls.
This is the major pivot in the culture that Elrod identifies, the shift from admiration to schadenfreude.
Taking pleasure in the pain and suffering of other people.
He argues that we've moved past the era of what he calls aspirational television, watching lifestyles of the rich and famous because we wanted to be them. Now we are deep in the era of voyeurism. We don't want to look up to people anymore. We want to see them laid low.
He uses the metaphor of the Roman Colosseum throughout the essay.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, when you look at the current landscape of shows, it fits so perfectly.
Hmm.
We're not watching for skill or talent. We're watching for the lions to be released.
We are absolutely watching for the car crash. We have another source in our stack, Outrage Machine by Tobias Rowe Stockwell, that explains the biology behind this. Our attention, our very neurochemistry, is naturally drawn to the unacceptable, the dangerous, the extreme.
Peace is boring.
Chaos is magnetic. It's an evolutionary survival mechanism that's now being exploited for ratings.
The example from the research it genuinely upset me when I was prepping for this, was from the show The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives.
Oh, yes.
The source described the behavior on that show as being like emotional seventh graders, just totally unhinged. But there was a specific storyline with one of the cast members.
You're talking about the mental health crisis that played out on camera?
Yes. One of the women on the show was driven to active suicidal ideation. She was in genuine life-threatening psychological distress because of the pressure of the show, the infighting, and the public backlash.
A real human being in real pain.
And the response from the other cast members, and, let's be honest, from the show's editing, was to frame her suffering as a strategic manipulation. They actually said she was hiding behind mental health.
That phrase right there, hiding behind mental health, that is the absolute epitome of the reality trap.
How so?
Because we have become so cynical, we've become so accustomed to the idea of the fake manufactured narrative that when actual human suffering unfolds on our screens, our first instinct is to treat it as just another plot twist. We refuse to see the person, we only see the character.
It's dehumanization. That's all it is, pure and simple.
It is, and the American Freak Show piece draws a direct line from this kind of on-screen cruelty to the public reaction around the Olivia Newsy scandal.
Right, the journalist who's involved in that scandal with the politician RFK Jr.
The source argues that the way the public and media engaged with that story, it wasn't journalism. He called it a penny dreadful of elite media decadence. The public didn't want the facts of the story. They wanted the gore.
They wanted to engage in what he called grisly rubbernecking and gleeful vindictiveness.
Gleeful vindictiveness. That perfectly captures the entire vibe of X. Whenever a new main character gets targeted for the day, it's not about justice or accountability. It's about the sheer exhilarating fun of being part of the hunt.
It's the outrage cascade.
Exactly. Psychologically, moral outrage is a powerful cocktail of anger and disgust. But when you share that outrage online with a group, when you pile on with thousands of other people, it doesn't feel like anger anymore. It feels like virtue. It feels like you're doing something good by helping to destroy someone you've decided is bad.
There's a quote from Fisher in the source material that just sent a chill down my spine. He said, "It's like standing in the center of the largest crowd ever assembled, knowing that at any moment it might transform into a mob."
And that right there is where this stops being a conversation about TV shows and starts being a conversation about the survival of our society. Because you cannot contain that mob mentality. You can't keep it quarantined to just a Love Island reunion show. It bleeds. It always bleeds into the real world.
And this is the final and most critical section of our deep dive, the threat to democracy. And I know if you're listening, you might be thinking, okay, come on, that's a huge leap. But if you follow the logic from the sources, it's not a leap at all.
No, it's a step. The core argument in the American Freak Show piece is that a functioning liberal democracy is built on two fundamental pillars: human dignity and mutual recognition.
I have to believe you are a person with inherent worth and rights, and you have to believe the same about me, even if we disagree.
Exactly. And the culture of reality TV actively trains us day in and day out to do the precise opposite of that.
It trains us to objectify, to see people as content, to see their pain as entertainment, their conflict as a story arc.
And when we start treating our politicians like they're the new cast of The Real Housewives, judging them on their witty comebacks, their viral moments, their outfits, rather than on their actual policies, we are eroding the fundamental empathy that's necessary for a democracy to function.
The source explicitly brings up Donald Trump here, and I want to be really clear to our listeners. This isn't a partisan critique of his tax policy or his foreign relations. It's analysis of the style of politics he perfected.
Precisely. The source describes him as the manifestation of American reality TV. He understood, maybe before anyone else in politics, that the electorate had become an audience. They didn't want a president, they wanted a protagonist.
They wanted a star.
He understood that in the Colosseum, the loudest, most entertaining gladiator is the one who wins, regardless of truth or substance. He brought the lowbrow entertainment values of reality TV into the highest levels of civic discourse.
And because we'd already been trained by 2 decades of Survivor and The Apprentice and everything else, we accepted it. We accepted that politics was now supposed to be a spectacle.
But here's the scariest part of the whole argument. The real threat isn't that the politicians are starting to act like reality stars. It's that we are.
The fishbowl effect.
This is the final, chilling twist in the story. We think we're safe. We think we're in the audience, sitting in the stands, watching the gladiators fight it out. But the walls of the Colosseum have expanded to include everyone. With social media, we are all in the arena now.
The quote is, "We are only the audience until we are hurled in ourselves."
Think about the main character of the day phenomenon on social media. Think about when a random private citizen is filmed having a bad moment in a grocery store, and within hours, millions of people who don't know them are calling their employer, trying to get them fired, demanding their complete social ruin.
It's the exact same villain edit we talked about at the start, but now it's crowdsourced.
We use the exact same tools. We strip away all context. We turn a complex human being into a two-dimensional caricature of evil. We dehumanize them. And then we destroy them for the dopamine hit of feeling righteous. We've taken the production techniques of reality TV and applied them to our own neighbors.
That's heavy. But it feels undeniably true. We've built this giant, efficient machine to eat celebrities for entertainment, and now that it's still hungry, it's starting to turn on us.
It's a terrifying feedback loop. The more dehumanizing content we watch, the more we accept dehumanization in our politics and our daily lives. And the more dehumanized our society becomes, the more we crave the distraction of extreme voyeuristic content.
So, just to trace it one last time, we've gone from Frankenbiting audio clips to fake a silly fight on TV, to psychologically hacking our own brains to feel a fake friendship, to monetizing that friendship, to turning that friendship into a blood sport where we cheer for failure.
And finally, to letting that blood sport mentality rot the very foundations of how we're supposed to treat each other as fellow citizens.
That is the reality trap. It's not just a show about housewives throwing wine.
It's a mirror, and it's not showing us a very flattering reflection right now.
So what's the takeaway? We always like to leave you with a final provocative thought. Something to chew on.
I think it comes back to the choice we make in the moment we're watching. The research is pretty clear that empathy and genuine curiosity are the antidotes to this. They are proven to make us more democratic, more connected. Voyeurism makes us less so.
So the next time you're watching a show, or you're scrolling through a cancellation thread on X, or you see a video of a new villain being taken down, just stop for 1 second.
And ask yourself a simple question. Am I watching a person, a complicated human being, or am I watching a character that I've been expertly conditioned to hate?
Are you just standing in the audience? Or have you picked up a stone and joined the mob?
Because the line between the two is getting thinner every single day.
Thanks for taking the deep dive with us.